Good morning, members. We have a quorum, and it is the appointed time I call to order the meeting. On today's agenda, we have one paper for discussion. Prior to the meeting, the administration has submitted paper ECI 2025-26, number 5, an information paper for member circulation. It sets out the information on the changes in directorate grade establishments approved since year 2022, and also the impacts on the establishment of directorate grade officers. From today's item, I remind members, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest concerning the item for discussion today, please disclose the nature of such interest before you speak in accordance to ROP 83A. I also remind you of the rules on voting in matters in which you have direct pecuniary interest in, according to Rule of Procedures 84. Now, Item 1, EC 2025-69, Food and Environmental Hygiene Department. Proposed creation of one time-limited supernumerary directorate post of Senior Principal Executive Officer, D2, in the FEHD for a period of 3 years with effect from the 15th of July 2025, or with immediate effect upon approval of the Finance Committee, whichever is the later, for overseeing the work related to private columbaria and the planning of municipal infrastructure projects. The government has consulted the panel on food safety and environmental affairs on the 13th of May this year. In attendance of the meeting today, to answer your questions, we have Ms. Diane Wong, Undersecretary for Environment and Ecology, Ms. Wendy Au, Principal Assistant Secretary for A&E, Mr. Law Kin Wai, Deputy Director of Food and Environmental Hygiene, and Mr. Francis Zhang, Assistant Director of Food and Environmental Hygiene. Now we will now invite Mr. Tommy Zhang, the Chairman of the panel, to report the deliberation of the panel. On the 13th of May, we have discussed the proposal to create a time-limited supernumerary directorate post of Senior Principal Executive Officer under the FEHD. It will be created on the expiry of the 2 directorate grade posts under the Private Columbaria Affairs Office on the 15th of July. The post will last for 3 years to supervise the planning work in relation to private columbaria and municipal infrastructure. The panel supported the submission of this proposal for the ESC's consideration. We have noted that to reduce directorate grade establishments and enhance work efficiency, it is proposed that the new position will take over the functions of the 2 supernumerary directorate posts and also share the burden of the other deputy director on planning and development. Members were concerned, considering the expected workload, whether the non-directorate grade establishments underpinning the position should be adjusted, and also that this position will be responsible for many recurrent work, including supervision of food and environmental hygiene facilities and planning, whether that will affect the work of the PCAO. The administration has responded to our questions and views. Now, these are the members who have pressed the button: Professor Chairman Kwong, Professor Chan Wing Kwong, Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, Mr. Perry Yu, Charles Siu Chung, Brave Chan, Dr. So Jiang Wing, and Mr. Tommy Zhang. Now, we will now invite the Undersecretary for E&E to walk us through the paper. Chairman, members, the 2 directorate grade positions at D2 and D3 grade will lapse on the 15th of July this year. We propose to create just one time-limited supernumerary post at D2 for 3 years. Now, the Deputy Director Special Duties will be responsible for overseeing municipal services planning and also the private columbaria work. Now, the PCAO and the Planning and Development section are two separate branches. Having carefully reviewed the operational needs and manpower of the PCAO and the PNDS, we propose to consolidate the works by creating a time-limited directorate post at D2, that is Assistant Director, to take over the work of the two existing offices. It will also absorb the relevant planning and development work under the other Assistant Director so as to achieve overall manpower saving at the directorate level and enhance work efficiency. Now, in the next few years, there will be a lot of work under the PCAO. It is very complicated and controversial. Directorate steering and support is necessary. That includes licensing approval and also monitoring of the operation of private columbaria, and also enforcement of conditions involving ash disposal, and also enforcement on contravention. Also, the post holder will be responsible for implementing the proposals under the Private Columbaria Amendment Bill 2024. Now, because of the complexity and variety of municipal services under FEHD, we need a deputy director or assistant director to take forward the work. Now, the FEHD is responsible for managing cooked food markets, hawker bazaars, cemeteries, columbaria, crematoria, and garden of remembrance. There are more than 2,000 types of services. And also, we need to enhance our municipal infrastructure to meet the needs of society. As at the end of April this year, there are some 330 projects under planning and in progress, including relocation of the food control facilities, the Warhap Cemetery development, and also enhancements, the enhanced public toilets refurbishment program. We will continue to monitor the development of private columbaria and also the municipal infrastructure to review our manpower situation and ensure that resources are allocated efficiently. We have carefully considered the existing establishments of the FEHD and also the workload of the post holder. We think the current proposal is the most appropriate one. It will be able to meet the operational needs in the next 3 years while retaining flexibility for reviewing manpower situation. We urge members to support our proposals. Me and my team will be happy to take questions. Thank you. Now, 8 members have pressed the button. Each member will get 5 minutes, including questions and answers. First, Professor Chairman Kong. Thank you, Chairman. Now, for the 2 posts which are going to lapse soon, they will be combined into one and last another 3 years. I think this is necessary. The Assistant Director is responsible for monitoring private columbaria as well as refuse collection points, public toilets, and public markets. These are important municipal infrastructure. Now, there is an administrative branch under the FEHD. And there are 8 sessions. One is Planning and Development session. Well, actually, there are 9 sessions. Why did the FEHD assign this session in particular to this Assistant Director? And also, the post holder will be responsible for supervising the 2 work areas, but the establishment is very different. Now, for the PCAO, there are 65 non-directorate grade civil servants. For the Planning and Development session, there are only 25 colleagues. Now, I don't think the number of our columbaria exceeds the number of our public markets, refuse collection points, and public toilets. So how can we balance out the establishment for the 2 sessions? Now, for the PCAO, there are 62 colleagues, but in 10 years' time, the application for specified instruments from 20 columbaria have been processed only. So there are worries that the PCAO is working too slowly. Now, of course, the amendment bill has been passed. There should be less delay in the future. So subject to the approval of this proposal, will the post be renewed for another 3 years? Under Secretary, now Assistant Director, Administration, the post holder is only leading the planning and development session since year 2020 on a temporary basis. Now the work scope is very wide, including administration, HR resources, logistics, IT, and even security. Now the FEHD is a very large department. We have a very large establishment with heavy and complicated workload. Now the planning and development session is only one of the 9 sessions we have. Now because of the sheer number and variety of our municipal infrastructure, we hope the post holder, Assistant Director, Special Duties, can focus their energy on planning for the municipal infrastructure in a more efficient manner. Now, as mentioned by the member, under the PCAO there are 62 colleagues. Under the PNDS there are 25 colleagues. Now, in the past, before the ordinance was passed in 2017, there were a lot of historical issues and contraventions. Directorate grade leadership is really needed to address the deep-rooted issues. It involves collaboration with other departments, for example, lands, planning, developments, and environments. So the 62 strong establishment is really required. They include health inspector and other supporting staff. Now, about the 25 strong establishments in the PNDS, they are mainly executive officers and also other supporting staff. They are responsible for communicating with other departments to take forward the infrastructure projects. Now, in 3 years' time, as I've said in the opening, we will closely monitor the situation. By then, depending on the workload, manpower situation, and also progress in technologies, we will review our manpower situation and consult the electrical. Next, Professor Chairman Kwong. Thank you, Chairman. The government has taken initiative to consolidate work and reduce directorate grade establishments, so I support it, but I have some questions. In the paper, it says Assistant Director, Special Duties, besides responsible for supervising the PCAO, they are also responsible for the planning of municipal services. Now, in the paper, it says clearly that at present, there are a large variety and number of municipal services and infrastructure. There are some 330 ongoing, which will be commissioned in the next 10 years. Since there are going to be a lot of projects to be delivered in the next 10 years, why is the government only pitching one 3-year-long supernumerary position? Will the government renew the post after 3 years? Now, if the renewal is not approved, who will be responsible for taking up the duty? Second, supervising private columbaria is very complicated work. It is very controversial. According to paragraphs 5 and 6, the licensing board has given in principle approval to 75 pre-cuts of columbaria. So how will the post holder lead the PCAO to follow up on the situation of the 75 columbaria and ensure that they can all complete the actions required under the waiver and the license to avoid triggering large-scale ash disposal because failure to meet the conditions. In the event that a columbarium has to close because of failure to meet the requirements, how will the government assist the affected public?
Undersecretary. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for your questions and concern. For the Planning and Development section in particular, in future, whether its work is long-term and whether there is recurrent need for the position, we need to look at two things. One, for the Planning and Development section, for the next 3 years, according to the paper, we did say for the Northern Metropolis development, we need to relocate the food facilities from Mankamto to Hung Yun Wai. We also have the Warhub Shack Cemetery development that need to be tended to. There's also the enhanced public toilet refurbishment program that has to be followed up on, and the Assistant Director Special Duties will need to provide steer for such work. And we will review the need for the position close to the lapse of the position 3 years later. As for the PCAO's work, from now to 2029, there are 75 pre-cut off columbaria that have to be dealt with. They have received approval in principle, and these pre-cut off columbaria have to be followed up on to make sure they are granted licenses in the end, or they will be refused to be granted with such licenses. So there is a need for manpower as well as the post to provide steering for such work. We will review the relevant factors when we gauge the need for the position 3 years later. As for how the Assistant Director Special Duties can deal with the applications for specified instruments in a more expeditious manner, there is an option of exemption upon the passage of the Private Columbaria Amendment Bill 2024. So with reference to new mechanism, the applications for exemptions will be dealt with in an expeditious manner. We will provide training to the staff of the PCAO. There will also be a series of measures implemented to handle the applications in an expeditious manner. We want to minimize the chance of ash disposal in future. And we have the Assistant Director promulgating procedures in future so that we can maintain communication with stakeholders. And should there be ash disposal, the family members can accept that in a more understandable manner. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. So we have a time-limited post of Senior Principal Executive Officer to be created. I support this. There is a need for private columbaria because public columbaria spaces are not enough to meet needs of citizens. But we need better management of private columbaria. We have been plagued with regulatory issues of private columbaria for many years. There's a need to rectify this situation. This time-limited post will last for 3 years. Honestly, there is no justification for not supporting the proposal because there is such need. As for the work of the planning and development section and the development of municipal infrastructures. In the paper, they quoted several major projects. One, relocation of food control facilities from Mankamto to Hangyun Way under the Northern Metropolis development. We also have the Wahab Shek Cemetery development. There's also the Enhanced Public Toilet Refurbishment Program. But for municipal infrastructures, I think there are many more in the Northern Metropolis because the area of the Northern Metropolis is quite large. I honestly think the work would last beyond 3 years, especially with the Northern Metropolis development lasting longer than that. So I want to ask about the progress of planning work of the Northern Metropolis development, and do you have adequate manpower for the relevant development, and whether having a time-limited position is appropriate for the development. Thank you. Undersecretary. For the planning and development work, of course, this time-limited position would have to deal with municipal infrastructure planning in the Northern Metropolis development. We talked about 3 major projects in the paper. The members' concern lies particularly with the Northern Metropolis development, the municipal infrastructures within. And there are indeed quite a number of municipal infrastructures. One of the projects to be done is, as said, the relocation of food control facilities from Mankamto to Hangyun Way, because Mankamto will just be a passenger clearance facility in future, which is why the food control facilities are to be relocated to Hangyun Way. The next step is to have town planning done. Excuse me, Undersecretary. I support the proposal. I do understand the major projects to be undertaken, quoted in the paper, are very important, but I think the scale of Northern Metropolis development is quite large, so I wonder if the position lasting for 3 years is appropriate. Well, we will review the workload and manpower deployment close to the lapse of the position 3 years later to see if we need more manpower or we need the position for longer. We also have 25 non-directorate posts assisting the assisting in the work of the planning and development section, so it should be adequate manpower. Dr. Lo Wai Kwa. Honestly, I think we need municipal infrastructures, but then sometimes the municipal infrastructures can also cause nuisance, which is why we are refurbishing the refuse collection points. So I think for the new development areas, planning and development have to be done better so that the municipal infrastructures will, of course, cater to the needs of citizens, but not cause any nuisance to citizens. We do note the suggestion or comments of the member. The assistant director will exactly be doing such work in promoting planning and development of such infrastructures. I think we need to keep abreast with the times. We need to make sure for the municipal infrastructures, the design has to keep pace with the times. Mr. Yu Patlang. Thank you. I speak in support of the proposal, and we will have the creation of a time-limited supernumerary directorate post for a period of 3 years with effect from 15th of July 2025. Essentially, we're eliminating a post by letting the 2 posts lapse and 1 post created. The assistant director's special duties has much work to tend to. They have to do the work of the PCAO as well as the work of the planning and development section. I'm most concerned about the work of the planning and development section. We have in particular the project Enhanced Public Toilet Refurbishment Program. In a city, the hygiene of public toilets reflect the sophistication of a city, and it is also tying in with the development of tourism in the city. I note in the paper we are refurbishing and enhancing the public toilets. We have right now 812 public toilets. And we are to promote tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong, right? So would you have plans for a timeline for public toilet refurbishment? I also note for the program, I do see an improvement with works being done. But having improved hardware, if we do not improve the software, in terms of maintenance and repairs, if we do not keep up with that, the public toilets will soon be in an unacceptable condition again. So do we have a territory-wide hygiene standard for public toilets in Hong Kong? Do you have comprehensive plans to have more toilets or refurbish the toilets? Thank you. Under Secretary. The FEHD has all along been taking feedback from the Tourism Commission. So we had public toilets close to tourism attractions refurbished first. And we had 250 public toilets works having begun already. And from 2024 to 2027, we have approximately 430 public toilets that are about to have refurbishment works begun, or they have such works planned. We will try to compress advanced works as much as possible so as to have the works undertaken as soon as possible and completed as soon as possible. We have also been working with the Architectural Services Department to see how we can have a good refurbishment program. We have also been working with different departments so that we are making use of the MIC method as well as the DFMA method that is designed for manufacture and assembly method, so that we can expedite the public works program and we can have a timeline for the program. As for software for public toilets, we have actually done much work in this regard. We have been making use of technology to allow cleansing workers to report any parts that need to have maintenance work done, and these reports will be sent to the Architectural Services Department. We have also provided training to staff members so that they can do the work in a more efficient manner. Apart from providing training to in-house staff, we have also been doing more public education work on what is good practice in the public toilets. So we have been doing more in publicity. And as you can see, the refurbishment works done in public toilets are of high standards, and we have received positive feedback from citizens. Chair, excuse me. I think the problem is we need to make sure we maintain high hygiene standards for public toilets after refurbishment. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Chow Siu Chong. Thank you, Chairman. This establishment proposal is about the creation of a new post However, it is, in effect, combining two supernumerary positions into one. It will bring about a saving of $3 million per year. So in principle, I would not oppose to the proposal. I agree that there is such a need. Now my questions for the Undersecretary is, Assistant Director, Administration, one of their duties is to supervise the planning and development session. Now the new post holder is going to take over the responsibility. So the Assistant Director, Administration's workload will be lessened. So I hope that in the future, with a less heavy workload, the Assistant Director Administration can perform better in other areas of work. In item 2 in the terms of reference, the post holder is responsible for managing the health of workers. Now, of course, the FEHD's work is unique, but there is a serious situation in terms of work injuries and death. It ranks second among all government departments, or even the first. So will there be better measures taken forward by the Assistant Director to protect workers' OSH? Now, point 3 of the terms of reference of the job description, handling complaints from colleagues. Now, I was told by unions of frontline workers, there's the situation of bullying, particularly on female workers. The complaints have not been followed up properly, and in the end, the case was taken to the Equal Opportunities Commission. So with the new post holder, implement some enhancement measures. Lastly, I believe that in 3 years' time, after 3 years, the government is going to apply for a renewal of the post. But what if we deny your application? Is there a backup plan? Now, the other Assistant Director, Grade Management and Development, they are also responsible for the supervision and policy setting for columbaria. So in the long run, will the Assistant Director be able to take over the work of this post holder if we suggest the government combining the two posts? Undersecretary, I will take the question and I will defer to the FEHD for elaboration. Now, first of all, Assistant Director, Administration, they are also responsible for the planning and development session, but that is just a temporary arrangement starting from 2022. Now, the member asked, will the Assistant Director be able to focus more on other aspects of their job after the PNDS is assigned to another director? Now, this Assistant Director is responsible for the occupational safety and health as well, so they will be implementing measures to enhance it. Now, we have 2 colleagues seconded to the FEHD to ensure OSH for frontline workers. Concerning complaints from colleagues, we attach much importance to them. There is a mechanism to handle the complaints to ensure that all complaints are being properly dealt with. Mr. Chow asked about the long-term prospects of the position. Since long-term planning and policy making is involved, there is a long-term need for this post. So as we have said at the opening, we will monitor the situation closely. First of all, will the work of the PCAO become more stable and recurrent? And for municipal services and infrastructure, depending on the progress of the construction works and the researches, and also the community's needs, we will consider whether directorate steering is still needed. We will consider the situation then, including the manpower situation, workload, and technology, in 3 years' time. Now, ADGMB, the Assistant Director post, the duty is different from Assistant Director's special duties. Assistant Director is responsible for the management and regulatory work of private columbaria, which involves a lot of historical issues. However, the work of the ADGMB, they are responsible for the overall burial policy, the so-called C&C work. So they are responsible for crematoria, cemeteries, and also funeral parlors. They are also responsible for overseeing the gardens of remembrance and green burial. So the nature of work is different. Of course, after 3 years' time, we will consider what's the most appropriate manpower arrangement. Deputy Director, please be brief. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chow. Now, following up on the OSH issue, the work of the FEHD is very heavy and diversified. Many of our work involves outdoor work and also manual labor and physical labor. So as the Undersecretary said, we attach importance to OSH. We are focusing on several areas. First of all, we are continuously enhancing the workers' awareness on their own safety and health. Through education, training, and interactive activities, we have been doing just that. Self-monitoring of safety and health is key. Second, the outdoor work environment is challenging, so we need proper equipment. So we give our workers the appropriate equipment. And one of the interactive training, or one of the interaction with our workers is that we will take the workers' feedback on what more equipment is needed to protect them. 3, a work environment is very diverse. So in terms of work deployments and the workload and frequency, as decided by the foreman, they will have to strike a balance between work efficiency and safety. Thank you, Dr. So Chan Wing. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I support the proposal to create a time-limited position for 3 years. And also, the paper says that we are trying to reduce directorate manpower, but also enhancing efficiency. That's the right direction. You have my support, but I have some questions. Now the change is rather drastic. The PCAO and the PNDS is a two-man job. Now it is integrated into one. So a few years back, the justification you gave to create the two posts were no longer valid. And also you mentioned how complicated and controversial the PCAO's work is. And in fact, we've just passed the relevant amendments bill concerning columbarium. There is a lot of work to be dealt with, and we can foresee a lot of controversies. So the direction is correct, but how do you balance cost saving and effectiveness? It seems that there has been a conflict between your previous justifications and your current proposal. And also, this new post will last until year 2028. However, the follow-up work on private columbaria will last until the middle of 2029, so there is a 1-year gap. During that 1 year, how will that task be handled? Undersecretary. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member. About the workload of the PCAO, as I've mentioned, in April 2023, a decision has been made for most of the precuts of columbaria. Now, there are lots of edges to be rounded in the initial stage. So there is already a plan to deal with all those issues. Now the new option to apply for an exemption will be made eligible for many columbaria. So the PCAO is follow up on that work. The post holder is pitched at D3 grade. But this post holder will also be reporting to the Assistant Director, Administration. We will adopt a number of measures to smoothen the process. For example, in the second quarter of 2025, we have reached out to operators of columbaria and asked them to adjust their operation. And we have also coordinated with the other departments to provide a swift response to the inquiries and application of columbaria. Now, the paper says that the private columbaria's follow-up work will last until the middle of 2029. Now, most cases will be dealt with by then. Those are cases involving application for licenses and exemptions. In year 2028, we will report to the electrical concerning how much progress we have been making. Thank you. Mr. Tommy Cheung, thank you. Now, the Liberal Party gives our support to the proposal. The Bureau and the department has been communicating with our party. Originally, they were pitching for a permanent post, but that's not our position, because the overall policy is to avoid creation of permanent posts. Now, recently I've been dealing with a case about private columbaria. Compared with 10 years ago, the workload has been much lighter nowadays. So I like the idea of combining 2 posts into 1. In terms of municipal infrastructure development, our public markets are aging. Many of them are in urgent need of maintenance. We need more manpower. I support the proposal. Now in the future, when there is a necessity to make the post permanent, I will support it. Today, I support your proposal. So I don't need a reply from the administration. Now I'm the chairman of the panel on environmental services and food safety. 10 years ago, we have been talking about the issue from Province Columbaria. We already foresaw many questions. So I think we should applaud the effort from the FEHD to address these long issues.
I agree. And the Secretary, please note the members' feedback. We will continue to move forward with such work. We thank the member for his support. Ms. Yong Hoi Yan. Thank you. For the creation of the time-limited post, I support this because this is essentially removing 2 time-limited posts and replacing it with only 1 time-limited post. Now, for the Private Columbaria Amendment Bill 2024, when we scrutinized the bill, we found out the work of the PCO was quite heavy. It involved cross-departmental coordination. It also involved communication with stakeholders. So I do recognize the work of Mr. Francis Ching, the Assistant Director of Food and Environmental Hygiene, Private Columbaria. We also need to enhance public education so that citizens are aware of regulation of private columbaria. We should also embrace technology to lower the costs, and we do see the fees for private columbaria niches being lower now, and citizens do appreciate that. We also note there are different religions for private columbaria, and we should accommodate that. I think for the senior principal executive officer, they need to really make sure they have reference to citizens' needs when thinking about which private columbaria are to be granted licenses. There should be different religions. We should also consider the fees charged. We should provide some concessions if we can, perhaps in the form of concessionary land premiums, or we can provide more support. We can coordinate with the lands department on this, because this is what citizens need. We talked about having in the Northern Metropolis some cemetery spaces or the great burial infrastructure, but then now we no longer have that. So we need to make sure there are adequate number of niches to match citizens' needs. The work is important, and honestly, filial piety, it is what citizens value. I do not require a reply from the administration on this, but in future we need to think about how we are to promote, say, green burial as well as worshipping arrangements for citizens. We need to think about the different aspects so that we can accommodate citizens' needs, as well as not to cause a nuisance for those in the surroundings of private columbaria. Undersecretary, any reply? We do note what the member said. We have a 3-pronged approach. 1, we have public columbaria. We also regulate private columbaria. We also have the crematoria. We have seen the fees of private columbaria niches getting lower as observed by the member, which is good for citizens. We have in the past some of the niches that have already had ashes entered, and we have provided concessionary land premiums for private columbaria. We also have public columbaria niches. We also have private cemeteries, actually. We have seen private cemetery spaces being available, and that has met the needs of citizens. We will continue with our three-pronged strategy. Thank you. Mr. Chen Yong. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Undersecretary. I would like to first praise the administration because I was told by those in my constituency saying that the administration's management of the relevant facilities being quite good. I also note in the organization chart or the table of establishment in the FEHD decreasing from 11,485 to 11,391 from in 2023 to in 2025. So I've seen the administration doing much rationalization of posts, but with post rationalization, we need to make sure we are enhancing efficiency and effectiveness of work. We have to maintain a certain level of quality of services provided to citizens, as citizens have expectations. So we need to allay the concerns of how, while we're undergoing rationalization, we are maintaining the standards of service. And we also need to make sure we are, in the interim, while we are undergoing rationalization, we have an appropriate waiting time for niches for citizens. We need to make sure we are providing at least the same level of services or even higher standard of services with the changes in the establishment. Thank you. Undersecretary, it is as a member observed in paragraph 20 of the paper, we have seen the number of posts in the FEHD decrease from 11,485 to 11,391. We have also eliminated directorate posts in the Center for Food Safety. The member asked, with the rationalization of posts, how we can maintain the level of services or even enhance the level of services. We have done much on this. We have expedited the handling of applications. We have also been doing well in communicating with operators and other departments. If there is good coordination, we should be able to handle the applications in an expeditious manner so that citizens are satisfied with our services. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let me do some time management. When we get to Mr. Holden Chow, I'll draw the line. So this is for the reference of members. Mr. Edmund Wong. We have rationalized the establishment of the FEHD. We will have only one instead of two directorate posts. It shows the government's determination to slim down the establishment of the government. Regarding the work of the PCAO, I want to ask about paragraph 7 in particular in the paper. It is said that 3,300 inspections were made, 670 complaints were received. That was since the commencement of the relevant ordinance. And we have also had 11 prosecutions initiated. 10 of the columbaria were convicted. I want to ask, how much did that cost? And I also want to ask for the 11 cases. I believe these were detected in inspections. But then this number compared to the total number of inspections, 3,300, is not a lot. So will you step up the number of inspections, and will you rely on reporting or complaints when you detect the relevant breaches? Thank you. Assistant Director. I'll have the Assistant Director answer the relevant questions. Thank you. For the PCAO, apart from dealing with the specified instruments, we also need to make sure there are adequate number of private columbaria that are being regulated, and we have set a period for which routine inspections will be held. And every year we will conduct about 500 routine inspections. We do not have that many private columbaria, so we will conduct not only the routine inspections, but also during the peak periods for worshipping, we are conducting inspections to make sure there is no nuisance caused to residents, and if they receive licenses, they need to comply with the license conditions. We have received approximately 200 complaints, and we have also been patrolling online to collect intelligence. In the end, we had initiated prosecutions for 11 columbaria. 10 of them were convicted. Thank you. Follow-up questions? Yes. I asked about the cost of inspections and prosecution, and so for every 300 inspections, only one columbarium will be convicted. So will they adjust the frequency of inspections with regard to such figures? Assistant Director. We saw at the beginning there were more cases of irregularities and complaints in relation to operations of private columbaria. We have seen less complaints in recent years. Now we're conducting inspections for the pre-cut off columbaria that to make sure they are not selling the niches. And we have also been inspecting columbaria that have received instruments. So we are making sure that they comply with the relevant conditions. In future, we want to actually step up inspections because there are new offenses after the enactment of the Private Columbaria Amendment Bill 2024. So we need to make sure the statutory requirements are met. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, after Mr. Holden Chow has spoken, I will draw a line, and I will put the paper to vote. Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you. Most of the questions are focused on the work of the PCAO. That is the main task or main duty of the post holder, but there is a detail I'm concerned about. The post holder will be responsible for leading the planning and development session for a period of time. So the PNDS is responsible for managing most of our refuse collection points, including some 900 RCPs in rural areas. Actually, I thank the FEHD for paying a site visit in Pat Heung with the DAB's members. There is a new refuse collection facility installed, which can reduce the odor. So about the 906 rural refuse collection points, there have been a lot of sanitary issues. So can we replace them with the new compression refuse collection facilities as soon as possible? Now, I'm also concerned about the height limitation and the location of the traditional refuse collection points. They may need modification to have the new refuse collection facilities installed. So can the new post holder help on that? Under Secretary. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member. Now, concerning the improvements on RCPs. Now, in the past, we have been improving our refuse collection facilities. For example, we have used refuse collectors with automatic doors and also the compression box. Now, with the compression function, we can collect a larger volume of refuse, and then the compressed refuse can be transported directly to the landfill. So we will continue to review the situation of our existing RCPs and implement enhancement measures. Now, Assistant Director Special Duties, they would be underpinned by the directors from all districts. So there is a dedicated team for improving RCPs, and we will continue with our work. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. Now, this post is called Assistant Director Special Duties. So as the name suggests, there are special duties necessitating this post. So this name, the description of the job, explains why the post will last 3 years in tenure. Now, municipal service infrastructure and PCAO, these are long-term work. I support pitching the post as D2 grade. But what will happen after 3 years? The administration said you will see what the situation is then. Well, I think you need to give better explanation. The managerial structure of the department should be forward-looking. For whatever reason, the post is not pitched as a permanent post, then you have to think ahead. How will the managerial structure adjust to adapt to the operational needs? Well, I don't think it is a good answer to say that you will review the situation again in 3 years' time. So I urge the administration to consider how should the workload be divided between the managerial colleagues. Otherwise, you will come back to our subcommittee and ask for an extension of the post, and that's not great. Under Secretary, Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member, for your understanding and your wisdom. We are also aware of the situation. Concerning the work of the PCAO, starting from 2017 up until 2028, there is a large amount of work to be completed. So starting from 2029, the work of the PCAO may become more routine. So if that's the case, the PCAO can be led by a non-directorate grade officer. Now, for municipal infrastructure, this is a long-term work, and there may be a need to make the post permanent. Depending on the progress of the projects and also the needs of society, then we will decide whether it's still justified the leadership of a directorate grade officer. That's our position, but we will strike a balance between all the factors. Starting from 2021, we have maintained a zero establishment growth. So in year 2025 to 6, we are still keeping the establishments at the level of March 2021. So depending on the microenvironments and the economic situation, and also our workload and manpower situation, as well as technologies development, we will balance all these factors in making a decision. Mr. Lai, I really hope you would think about this in more detail. There is always a need to have more manpower. You should be thinking how you adapt to the situation. Otherwise, there will always be more work than people. That's the same for every grade. That would be a vicious cycle. And you will not be able to fulfill the goal set by the Chief Executive. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Chairman. The DAB supports the creation of this post. So you are combining two posts into one and you are saving public money. But the work you mentioned in the paper are all necessary work, including making plans for public markets, toilets, and refuse collection points. So management and administration is a part of the job description, but I think you are separating administration with development. They are all part of the managerial job. So this is a very important post. I think the first and foremost duty of the post holder is to ensure that the department is doing what it should do. Like Mr. Holden Chow said, when the undersecretary was still working under the FEHD, we already told you about the problem of the refuse collection points. Now, those RCPs with automatic doors are actually very old tech. So by using more technologies, we can save manpower. Now, the Chief Executive said that we have to have zero establishment growth. But actually, we have asked you to use technology to reduce manpower needs. After so many years, there have been some underwhelming progress. We're still using the traditional methods to collect refuse. Every day, the refuse trucks would follow the same route to collect the refuse at 8 a.m. But when the trucks are full, the refuse will be lying on the street. I hope you would utilize big data to enhance your planning. But then you will have to hire another team just for that purpose. So the transitional period is still challenging. Now, this is my own observation. Since there are lots of long-term work, either you make the post permanent, either you come back to renew the post. Either you subsume the jobs under other posts. But that would not be ideal for the other assistant directors. So after 3 years' time, will you shuffle the workload between other assistant directors or ask for a renewal? And lastly, about planning. Many members ask questions about columbaria, but my focus is on public markets and LCPs. Now, public markets business is very bad. The electrical has approved the construction of 2 public markets in Tinshui and Kutong. However, the design is very outdated, including the location of the parking spaces and loading bay. For example, the Kutong 1, there are only 5 loading bays. We have said this many times. If you are still holding on to the old design, then many drivers will be penalized. The police will issue fixed penalty notice to them for illegal parking. So there should be much more parking spaces to address the problem. That's an issue you have to address, whether new public markets are built or not. It causes a lot of conflicts in society. I think you have to address these problems head on. Thank you. Concerning the application of technology, I will defer to the Deputy Director for a reply. Concerning the other 2 questions, first, the planning and development session. It will be led by the Assistant Director, Special Duties. But it is also underpinned by other colleagues in other sessions. Now, there are 3 Assistant Directors, Operations 1 to 3. They lead the 19 districts, and they manage the facilities therein. Now, the new post holder will take their views in their planning work. Now, for public markets, we also have an Assistant Director, Public Markets Development, to oversee the development of the public market. So we have taken on board the members' views in a past communication. And we will also consult the electrical on the future of public markets. And after 3 years' time, what will be the future of this post? Now we keep an open mind on any options. We thank members for your views, including making the post permanent or consolidating the duties among the assistant directors. So we will consider the relevant factors and report to the electrical. Deputy Director. Thank you, Mr. Ho, for your questions. In terms of application of technology, the FEHD is one of the largest establishments in the government. We do use technology to reduce manpower. Now, for example, we have been working with the ENMD and introduced power-assisted trolleys as well as automatic cleansing robots. We have also introduced international industrial-grade robotic docks to clear refuse for us. We have also worked with another department to establish a system to identify the source of air conditioner leaking by using infrared technology. We plan to upgrade the system to the new generation soon so as to enhance the scope and efficiency of the system.
Chair, what I meant was, when the government applies for funding, they would talk about making use of technology to lower manpower needs. But it seems that manpower is not actually reduced. So why do we need to do it in the first place? I think one of the aims of using technology is to reduce manpower, but we haven't done that. Instead, we have increased manpower to monitor the operations of the equipment. I think this is a point why we are developing innovation and technology under Secretary. Why have you reduced establishment then? What have you reduced exactly? Well, we are making use of technology to reduce manpower needs. We talked about in the paper a decrease in the establishment in the FEHD, and in 2026, 27, 28, in accordance with the 2025-26 budget, we will have a 2% decrease in establishment compared to the previous year in FEHD. So we will be cutting manpower. We will also make use of different ways to tackle the relevant work. Making use of technology is part of it. Thank you. I'll let the next member speak then. Well, we can talk after the meeting. Ms. Kamen Khan has just pressed the request to speak button. I did not plan to ask questions, but I heard what Mr. Stephen Ho and the administration said. I think in previous Finance Committee meetings, we have noted how the FEHG had the highest number of vacancies, close to 1,000. And for the Public Accounts Committee scrutiny of the work of the FEHG, we have seen many outdated practices are still being used by the FEHD. So one has to sign in by having their cards stamped, or they have to actually sign in. I think in future, the department needs to embrace technology. Outsourcing is not the answer. You need to make better use of technology to enhance efficiency. You need to heed feedback from the Public Accounts Committee and the Audit Commission. You need to go above and beyond that, actually. I don't need a reply. Undersecretary, we do note the recommendations of the Audit Commission and the Public Accounts Committee. In different parts of our work, we have some follow-up actions to be taken, including making use of technology. We have some measures that have already been implemented. We will implement even more measures, and we will observe the progress. Thank you. I'll now put the item to vote if members have no other question. Members in favor of the proposal in EC 2025-26-9, please raise your hands. Members against the proposal, please raise your hands. I believe most of the members who voted on the item were in favor of the proposal. The proposal is endorsed. On whether there should be further discussion of the item EC 2025-26-9 by the Finance Committee. In accordance with paragraph 48 of the Establishment Subcommittee procedure, I now put the following question to vote. The subcommittee recommends further discussion by the Finance Committee of the proposal in EC 2025-26-9 that was endorsed by the subcommittee. I remind members that if the question is agreed to, it means that the Establishment Subcommittee recommends that the Finance Committee further discuss the item. If the question is negative, it means that the subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of the item by the Finance Committee. Members in favor, please raise your hands. All right. Members against, please raise your hands. Thank you. I believe most of the members who voted on the item were against the question. The question is negative. That is, the subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of item EC 2025-26-9 by the Finance Committee. This is the end of the meeting. The next meeting will be held on 9th of July, Wednesday, between 8:30 and 10:30 in the morning. Thank you.